generations. And so your argument for color blindness, I think, is something that the right has co-opted. And so many in the Black community, if I'm being honest with you, because I want to be, believe that you are being used as a pawn by the right and that you're a charlatan of sorts.
He's not a Republican.
So how do you...
He's never voted for a Republican.
You said that you're a conservative.
No.
No, you did. You actually said that in a podcast that you did 2 weeks ago.
I said I was a conservative.
Yes, you did. So, but my question to you is, how do you respond to those critics?
So I had the chance, as I mentioned in a community post, and if you haven't had a chance to check it out, I recommend that you do. I had a chance over the past weekend to go visit the International African American Museum in Charleston. And there you see all the artifacts from the antebellum period and through the period of slavery. You see all the horrors of slavery because Charleston was one of the main ports for slavery. It was one of the ports for slavery. When they came across the Middle Passage, a lot of them arrived in Charleston. And so you see all that. You see all of the lives that were lost during that peculiar institution. You see all of the history that was lost by captives who came over here. And so when I saw that, I felt a sense of humility, because I recognize that so many people gave their lives for the freedom that I enjoy. They sacrificed for me to be free. And so when I see people like Sunny Hostin, people like her are being used as racial pawns to continue to pick at the scab of slavery, to continue to pick at the scab of Jim Crow, to continue to pick at the scab of this nation to keep us divided. She is a racial pawn that is being used by the likes of the Marxists and the communists to further divide us and to keep Black people in their place, to corrupt Black people with this victim mentality.
When you say that socioeconomics picks out people in a better way than race, when you do look at the socioeconomics, you see the huge disparity between white households and Black households.
But see, that's where Sunny Hostin is being disingenuous. When you look at the history of Black households and white households, you have to compare apples to apples. And also, Sunny does not mention that before 1960, before the Great Society programs of Lyndon Baines Johnson, before he said that he will have Negroes voting for the Democratic Party for 200 years. Yeah, he said that. Look it up. Before he said those things, the Black community had a lot of wealth because the Black community was intact. Fathers were in their home. Marriages were strong. The community had a oneness about it because they knew they needed to stick together in order to flourish in America. But once desegregation occurred, once integration occurred, once the New Deal programs and the Great Society programs went into full effect, you see the disintegration of the Black community and you see the disparity in wealth between Black households and white households. But she wouldn't say that.
You see the huge disparity between white households and Hispanic households. So your argument, and I've read your book twice because I wanted to give it a chance, your argument that race has no place in that equation is really fundamentally flawed, in my opinion.
These people, the clapping seals. You want to know why race has a place? I'll tell you why race has a place. Because the racial grifters, the race hustlers, and Sunny Hostin is one of them, the racial pushers, utilize race to keep Black people in their place, to deflect from the policies that they're endorsing, to deflect from the third world conditions they've placed Black people in the guise of helping Black people. How have those policies helped Black people over the last 60 years? How have those policies produced human flourishing in the Black community? By and large, tell me that. Who have been the ones primarily running these cities into the ground and running the urban communities that consist of brown and black people into the ground more than anybody else. The Democratic Party, and more specifically, Marxists and progressives, just like Sunny Hostin.
There's two separate questions. One is whether each racial group is socioeconomically the same. That I agree with you. They're not.
They're not, and the stats show that.
Of course, I agree with that fully. The question is, how do you address that in the way that actually targets poverty the best?
Right.
And what Martin Luther King wrote in his book Why We Can't Wait is he called it, we need a Bill of Rights for the disadvantaged. And he said, yes, we should address racial inequality. Yes, we should address the legacy of slavery. But the way to do that is on the basis of class, and that will disproportionately target blacks and Hispanics because they're
Honestly, I disagree with him there. The way to do it, number one, is to restore the biblical order, the biblical foundation in the community. When the community had a biblical order and a biblical foundation, when you had a man in a home, we had the order correct with man, woman, and children, the community flourished because families flourished. You have a better chance of a child doing well when that child comes from a nuclear family, from a two-parent household. You just do. You can't fix the economic issues unless you fix the family issue first. I'm sorry. All these people talking about fixing the economic issues, you cannot fix that on a grand scale until you fix the family issue.
Proportionally poor, but it will be doing so in a way that also helps the white poor, in a way that addresses poverty as the thing to be addressed.
That part is true, but as you are a student of Dr. King, I'm not only a student of Dr. King, I know his daughter, Bernice. Right?
What does that have to do with anything, Sonny? That you know his daughter?
So I'm going to get to my question.
Go ahead, go right ahead.
I think the premise is fundamentally flawed. You claim that color blindness was the goal of the civil rights movement, based upon Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, content of character versus the color of skin. Bernice, Dr. King's daughter, points out that 4 years after giving that speech, actually, Dr. King also said this: a society that has done something special against the Negro for hundreds of years must now do something special for Negroes. He also said in 1968, it was about less than a week before he was assassinated, this country never stops to realize that they owe a people kept in slavery for 244 years. So rather than class, he did write about that earlier on. Right before his death, he made the argument for racial equality and racial reparations. And so your argument for color blindness, I think, is something that the right has co-opted. And so many in the black community, if I'm being honest.
Sonny, you don't speak for the black community. I don't like it. It seems like the black community is the only one where we have these spokespeople. We have people like Sunny Hostin. You have people like Joy Reid. You have people like Al Sharpton. You have people like Roland Martin. It seems like the black community is the only community where we have spokespeople. It reminds me of what Malcolm X said, how we have been given these leaders, these puppets that have been put in place to keep black people in a certain mentality and in a certain stratosphere. That's the way they treat black folks. And now that I've been to that museum in Charleston, it really, really makes me upset when I hear people like Sunny Hostin talk as if those people, our ancestors who endured true hardships, who endured true suffering, who endured true racism, who endured true discrimination, but chose not to focus on that, but rather chose on the God-given agency that they possess, knowing they're looking for a brighter day, a brighter hope, a blessed hope in the future. They chose to focus on that instead of their present condition, and to have people like Sunny Hostin continue to bring up race as if that is the thing that's keeping black folks down. No, it is not. It is people like you, race pawns, who are keeping black people, who are corrupting the black community because you choose to focus on these things that really don't matter. You choose to have black folks continue to focus on our skin, continue to focus on the atrocities of the past instead of celebrating the victories that we've had as a people.
Honest with you, because I want to believe that you are being used as a pawn by the right and that you're a charlatan of sorts.
He's not a Republican.
She called that man a pawn and a charlatan. She has said that man is being fake and that man's being used. He's being played. That's the thing. It's only in the black community where if you think a certain way, if you think differently, if you say, yes, racism still exists. Yes, slavery was horrible. Yes, Jim Crow was horrible. Yes, the discrimination that our ancestors faced was horrible. But yet they found a way to thrive and to make it and to find victory during the midst of the environment that they grew up in. If you say that we can do the same thing that they did, as a black person, you're labeled a charlatan, you're labeled a pawn of the right. You're labeled an Uncle Tom. You're labeled a Stephen Fetchit. You're labeled a Uncle Ruckus. You're labeled a coon. You're labeled all of these things. Just because you have the mindset that God has given us freedom. And these people will claim that they're Christians. See, that's the most frustrating thing. These people will claim that they're Christians, but yet they don't meditate on scriptures where it says, stand fast in the liberty where Christ has made you free. There is no longer Jew nor Greek, male or female, slave nor free. You're all one in Christ Jesus. They don't meditate. They don't talk about these scriptures. It's as if Jesus didn't die and was not resurrected for us to have freedom. That's what it comes down to. It's as if that these people don't believe that the freedom that Jesus purchased for us can be realized in this life unless the government gives it to us. And that's the fundamental problem I have with people like Sunny Hostin.
I think it's very important. The quote that you just pointed out about doing something special for the Negro, that's from the book Why We Can't Wait that I just mentioned.
Yes.
A couple paragraphs later, he lays out exactly what that something special was.
Yes.
And it was the Bill of Rights for the Disadvantaged, a broad class-based policy.
But he also says you must include race.
No, he didn't. He says it's
Yes, he does.
Okay, well, everyone should go read the book Why We Can't Wait. Let's not get sidetracked by that.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been co-opted by anyone. I've only voted twice, both for Democrats. Although I'm an independent, I would vote for a Republican, probably a non-Trump Republican if they were compelling. I don't think there's any evidence I've been co-opted by anyone, and I think that's an ad hominem tactic people use to not address really the important conversations we're having here. And I think it's better, and it would be better for everyone if we stuck to the topics rather than make it about me with no evidence.
But I want to give you...
Brother, shut her down. Good job, brother. Way to shut that race hustle, that race pawn down. And that's what we have to do to these racial grifters, these race pawns, the black bougie elite who want to deflect from the real issues, who don't want to talk about what is truly going on in the community, that don't want to talk about the true systemic issues that face the black community when it comes to poverty, when it comes to education, when it comes to opportunity. They don't want to talk about that. They want to continue to talk about race, continue to talk about slavery. But yet, as I walked around the museum down in Charleston, I was reminded of the victories, of the triumph that those people achieved because they had a faith in God, because they looked to the future, because even though they were physically in chains, mentally and spiritually, they were not. We need to return to that state in the black community, because when we do, we'll realize that we're not victims, man. We are empowered for greatness.